Then it's kind of, in a way of summarizing some of the positive and negative perspective earmarks, and I want to just go through some of them that put in those two categories. Just think about, and this is not a black-white thing, of course, but for purposes of our talking about it, I'm putting in the two. There are the negative perspectives and there are positive perspectives. Let's look at some of the subtitles of what it means to have a negative or a positive one. Fear-based versus hope-based. That's one way that, think about it. If we looked at it more closely, most of the negativity, and this I mentioned early, watching out for what's going to do you in, that's fear is involved there. And when fear is involved, you tend to look at, that fear governs how you think about things and what you do. And if you can somehow be more hope-based and less fear-based, you're going to be better off. Looking for mistakes and looking for what has worked. Again, we talked about that. Mistakes, you've gone to classes and written essays, and your teacher has written back and put in red lines all the mistakes you made. And so you've had a lot of experience with focusing on your mistakes. And we probably need a little bit more in our background of looking at what worked. And of course, there's a appreciative inquiry, if anybody finds more interest in that. It's an organizational development approach that's related to what we do very much. And there they go in and ask people in an organization what works in the organization rather than what didn't work. And so that basically fits a positive perspective. Scarcity, abundance. It tends to be that when things get tough and there's a lot of scarcity, people tend to be more negativistic. They tend to look at it's us against them type of thing, and so that's that us against them, or seeing commonalities. So those are all other things you'll find with positive perspectives and negative perspectives that where people just are constantly in I'm over here and they're over there. Well, our politics is a perfect example of that, how we're just divided into these liberal and conservative and Republican, Democrat type of things, and make it further apart all the time. That's that whole thing is just basically leads to negative perspectives a lot more than it does positive perspectives. So we got things to do. There's war and conflict tends to give people more negative perspectives. Of course, we have a wonderful history of wars and not that much emphasis on diplomacy and negotiations and so forth. So there again, we've got all these things are interconnected, and the way our society is and the way we live is very much influenced by the perspectives of the people involved. Just the whole idea of competitive versus collaborative. Competitiveness is great. In some ways, it gets people to work harder and be more productive in some ways. In other ways, it's divisive again. And we want more collaboration, probably. And of course, there's always the looking for threats, looking for possibilities. We talked about that. Pessimism or optimism now. And win-lose thinking and win-win thinking. There's an awful lot of win-lose thinking, which is again like many other categories. And it's just just generally the same thing, being strength-focused or strength or weakness-focused. So those are just them elaborating more on what a positive perspective and a negative perspective will do. So now, this looks like a big case here. You say, boy, I want to be in the positive perspective side, and it's true, it's better. But of course, our society, we're not there yet. And you still have to be negative. You still have to look out for threats. You still have to do all those things. So you're not saying that you can just put blinders on and not look at anything bad, and because that doesn't work. But we can certainly try to emphasize, be focused more on the positive, on the strengths and so forth. And that's the basic case that we're doing. So, in summary, if I could, this is a statement that I think gets to the point I'm trying to make here, is that by focusing on strengths, this thing I've called cultural evolutions, moving from that more negative focused, threat focused, gradually to a place where we are more collaborative, more interactive, more positive, more hopeful. That's something's going on in our society, and there's pressures to be one way and the other way. And I believe, and I think there's a lot of support for this, is the idea that if somehow more and more people can get the positive perspective, know how important it is, and take action to make people more positive, that this all furthers the evolution toward a better society. I'm optimistic, basically. Well, I'm optimistic, have been all my life, but when I read the literature and think about it in those global ways, I'm thinking that this is something that is happening right now, where there's sort of a push-pull between, are we going to have more wars? Are we going to have more positive ways of dealing with problems? Are we going to have more cooperation around the world and maybe even world governments, things like that? Or are we going to stay in our groups and fight each other, all that? That's going on right now, and we need more people on the side of being a positive perspective, strength focused. And so I know this, I'm preaching to the choir here, because the fact that you came here means that you are predisposed to be positive. There's 30 minutes, that's what I'm supposed to go on, but go a little further. So what I'm trying to, the message I guess I'd like to make here is that you are predisposed to doing something about this, or you wouldn't probably be here. And I think this is really good. But the problem is that we need a lot more of this type of thing, a lot more people like you out doing these things, promoting this in your organizations, in your communities and so forth. And so in a way I'd sort of say that in a way you are to kind of possibly the leaders or the people who have a chance to do this. And it's going to be important because your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, so forth, are the ones that are going to benefit. Because if we don't do it, we could slip back into kind of the nuclear holocaust type of situation, and we could go back to divisions where we fight each other to the end and all that. But I think we're at a place now where we're almost ready to make that leap into a society where people are more positive and more focused on strengths and so forth, and you can do the job to help that happen. So in some ways, you're sort of the chosen people in a way for doing this, and so I would encourage you. Yeah. So I'd just say, go home from this workshop, and besides helping people do the process and get better jobs, which you need to do, and that's really important, you can spread it to your PTA groups, to your church groups, to any place, to just get people thinking more that way. And you have a few skills of, you can help people articulate strengths, and you can promote that. And I say that's one of the reasons you should be here, and why it can be a real benefit. So with that said, I just say you have a solid framework for why you should be doing this more broadly, and so I encourage you to just renew that emphasis and keep doing it. Not only do it at your work and helping people find better jobs and so forth, but do it everywhere in your life. Okay.
Thank you, Jerald.
Yeah. Thank you.